I'm waking up to a daily example of things that excite and terrify me at the same time. Of course, there is tremendous excitement in the marketplace about individuals being able to build and use tools. But as I read through the article, that was exciting. I came across a doctor. He had watched a YouTube video, couldn't sleep that night, picked up his laptop, right, and was vibe coding the next day. And what he chose to do is move data out of his radiology system into his clinical medical record system, right? If I had hair, it would be standing up at that point, right? But the thing that caught me in that article the most was he's quoted as saying, saving lives is great, but the thrill of being an engineer, as I'm paraphrasing this, nothing compares to being able to create. And they're so excited about it that they took that one example and that his practice now has 10 more things coming, right? All right, so you don't want to kill the guy's enthusiasm. However, without his patient's permission, he's exposed all their medical records to a third party. There's no business associate agreement, right? He tied together a radiology medical records or a device system into this. I could go on and on about the potential for breach that occurred with absolutely no thought in going on with that. And then the ironic part in this is the thought of calling yourself an engineer is easy to say, but the upside of being an engineer is the accountability on building a bridge that people don't die on when they cross, right? And so that got missed in the article. So as you know, you and I were laughing because this is the equivalent of me saying that I watched a surgical video on YouTube and you and I are going to do our first appendectomy tomorrow. And my comment is being an engineer is exciting, but saving lives is where it's at. So that's my twist on that story. So it's easy to say that we need to be able to identity proof devices, agents, right? Who's going to set the standard as to how an agent should identify itself, right? So it's going to require industry. What we don't have that we always had is time. So the standards that are in place today, right? So we need the accelerant on this is going to be the market pulling us in. It's going to be industry pulling and not just any single organization thinking that they own this, but time is critical here. It's development of standards for interoperability. We're in an interoperable world here. Then you need an accrediting body, because unless you can third-party accredit that people are actually following that, then there's a lot of harm to be done, right? So those things need to come together as quickly as possible. So there are three things that we're touching today, all of which will involve federated AI and the Axonis model here. One of them is that we're heavily into robotics. We've got work going on right now in assisted living facilities. Inside of those facilities, the technology actually exists to be able to have something roll into the room and without touching the patient, pick up vitals, right? It also is much smarter than that. It can look at gait, movement, and all those other kinds of things. You really don't want, we don't want that data to leave the assisted living facility, right? But there's intelligence being collected and there are people being notified, right? So clinicians, the robot operators, caregivers, right? Is there consent in place? There's a whole bunch of things that get wrapped into this that need to be taken care of and federated at the local level. So as I look at robotics, one direct answer to your question is robotics is very, very exciting. And us adding ethics and identity and context and all of that into that role and federating it so that how do you scale? How does our partner scale from 1 to 1,000 assisted living facilities or nursing facilities is a question that is easier answered one at a time as opposed to building a huge monolithic system. So that's number one. Number two is just the general subject of the Ekko framework and its ability in our model to replicate something like Stripe was able to accomplish. Now, coming out of payments, what they've done, though, is they've abstracted away the compliance and the complexity out of what was a more complex environment. So we're doing the same thing with the Ekko platform. That inherent compliance is the second exciting thing those products are here now. We're working with you and deploying them, right? The third area is that through a sister company to Ekko called Quantum Corridor, we actually are laying right now the fiber that will be used for quantum computers to communicate. That's starting in Chicago and moving toward New York right now, and privacy protection in a quantum network. That's where we are touching today, and where we're going to be in the next 2 to 3 years is going to be thrilling.